Hola, and welcome to review of present tense, because we've been spending mucho tiempo on the concept of, okay, if I have a regular verb, what am I supposed to be doing? And then last lección, we were talking all about when things go wrong and or if there's a separate rule that we have to be following with all this extra work. So let's just put a nice bow on the concept of presente for now, because what we're going to want to do after this in lección 7a, B, and C, we're going to get into questions and some sentence structure and basically just take some of these verbs that we've been conjugating and put them into a question format. So that's going to be how we build off of this. But first, we want to make sure that everything is super solid before we start adding more and more complexity, as you know we love to do. So let's take a look at this lección real quick. It's going to be a brief one, okay? This is really just me kind of walking you through a way to make sure you really get these concepts before heading into the next lesson. So we're going to summarize. There's kind of three ways that we can conjugate present tense. The first way is kind of normal, right? Where we had those pasos. So I think there were 5 or 6 pasos that we were taking steps to get to the right answer. So we're starting with our infinitivo, we're removing our endings, right? We're adding new ones. And that's what I would probably say is the foundation of all of this. But then we do work on some irregular yo forms. And these 3 in particular stem changes, these are from the second go round. So this is lección 5, and then this is lección 6a right here. So if you are looking at these and going, oh man, I really didn't give these the time that I was hoping to, those are where you can, like the lesson plans you can go to get más repaso. But let's see how much we can get out of just going through this now. So primero, we just want to work through some charts because the repetition is necesario. I know it's dry. I know it's bland. If you really want to change it up a little bit here, I still recommend doing the chart unless you can just rattle it off in your head to me right now and say, I don't really need to fill them in. We want to work on our spelling and our pronunciation. So we're just going to do this together. I've chosen tres verbos diferentes that I know to be regular. So ER, IR, and AR. Take a second to make sure you know what they are. And if you're like snooze fest, I already know all of these, then pick a different one. Pick a different ER, IR, and AR verb to put in here, but follow along either way. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to show you 2 different approaches that you saw in the previous videos, but one is like the assembly line approach, and I prefer to do this personally because it's like knocking out the first step all the way down and then the second and so on. So my thing I like to do is just start with the stem. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm given my infinitive, I'm removing my ER, and by that point, I'm taking my stem and just dropping it into all of these boxes. The reason we're calling this a stem too is because then when we get to stem changers later on, you're like, right, the change is happening in the piece that's left over after the ending is gone. So hopefully you're still with me. So the next thing I need to do is, if you still are having a little trouble remembering what all those endings are that we need to be associating for each type of verb, not a problem, but I would go grab your sheet or write it out right now, where you have all of them listed, because if you have the list next to you, it's really just simple addition, putting all of those endings on. And if you're able to do it from memory, that's a really good sign if you're able to get them all accurate. So let's give it a try. So the first one is going to be an O. They're all going to be an O, by the way. The next one is going to be S, and then E, and then hemos with an E like that, and N. So that's me filling in the whole chart assembly line style. Hopefully that's what you got for this. If you want to try a different verb, you could try out like beber if you'd like to. You could try filling those in all by yourself without looking, whatever you want to do. But that's how I approach it, is adding all those endings that hopefully I've memorized. But if not, I'm just peeking at the chart for at this point. And sometimes, weirdly enough, there's one that's really sticky and hard to remember. I feel like it's always this bottom one. It's kind of the afterthought by the time you get here. But also también remembering that there's hemos, imos, and amos. And here we're using hemos. So it's one of those 3. Now, here's a bonus point for you. We have to be able to say these words out loud. We don't get any, brownie points for just being able to write out an eloquent chart and then move on with our life, unless you're trying to like major in Spanish or something. So if that's the case, that you're like, okay, I can spell it, but I can't really say it, then let's do this together. What is the logic behind how I pronounce each of these words? Because yes, as we learned in 1B, there is logic to every single one of these. So if I'm pronouncing this first word, I have 2 vowels. We're always emphasizing a vowel. How do I know which one it is? Pause me if you need to. If you have your lesson plan or video companion or whatever from 1B, pull that up because that's going to help. Also 1A talks about it. But if you're still here and going, just tell me the answer, then I will do that. It ends on an O, which is a vowel. We go to the second to last vowel to give our pronunciation kind of emphasis, a little bit of extra pizzazz. So I'm going to sound this out like como. Como. If you were like, what even is the difference? We're not saying como. Cool. Next one is ending on an S. Is that the same situation? Well, we're wondering, right? Okay, that's right. It was N, S, and a vowel, which conveniently we see N's, S's, and vowels this entire chart. So in the second one, the same regla applies. So go ahead and highlight the one that it's supposed to be. And hopefully you're getting the same answer as me. We're going to say como for the first one and comes for the second one. Third one, any different? Pretty similar to the first one because it's ending on a vowel. So I'm just going all the way down. This is starting to feel really easy, but then we get to nosotros. Why is nosotros difficult and different? Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, when we go through the stem changers, there's something special about nosotros. So start preparing yourself for that. And second of all, there's extra vowels. That's the real problem here. So our ending here has an E and an O. All the other endings just had one. So that's going to push our pronunciation back. Okay, so if you look at this, we've got an O here. That's our last vowel. This right here is an E. So it'll be comemos. Comemos. Okay. And then lastly, you go, oh man, well then is it going to be the E like me again, or is it going to be O? So do this one by yourself. Okay, I'm doing it. So take this moment to repeat after me all the way down the chart, okay? So we're going to get como, comes, come, comemos, and comen. Fantástico. Because we got so many verbs coming at us every minute of the day, right? You probably already know a couple dozen verbos just from going through Lección 5, 6A. We got to know that if we see it on paper, we need a structure for how we're going to pronounce it, which I know it may feel like it was a little early for me to explain it when I first did in like the first 2 lesson plans, but now we're getting practical application all the time of this. So our next verb is escribir. If you want to do this one with me, fantastic. An alternative option for you would be compartir or whatever else you can think of. That's an IR verb that's regular. Go for it. So we've got our assembly line is what I did for the first one. This one, I'm not going to do that. I'll do the steps slower each time. Probably should have done this backwards, but anyway, so I'm going to start with escribir. I'm going to remove my ending. So that's me showing the extra step that I skipped before, and then adding my O because I have my chart next to me or in my mind, and I know that an O goes with all 3 of these, but also here, I'm going to do this again. So I'm going to get escribir, which I'm typing out, removing, adding my ending ES. So we'll pronounce these in a second. Hopefully you're doing this along with me. So escribir, get rid of, add the E. Nosotros is where I'm highlighted here. I don't know why, but this one is going to be imos. So we had hemos, now imos. And then we have escribir, escriben. So take a look. Between these first 2 charts, you should be seeing a lot of similitudes or similarities. What is the similarity between the 2 charts? And what is the one gran diferencia? Hopefully you're able to find that by taking a peek. Correct. I'm sure you're telling me that this one is diferente because it has imos versus hemos, but every other ending is el mismo, right? So really, when I'm trying to sell this to you, I'm saying you're really only learning 2 charts, ER, IR, and AR, but you just have to make sure you keep your nosotros straight. So if you want to view it that way, fantastic. I'm going to give you the opportunity now to do the bolding. If you find that useful, I always did to like put a little line under or to highlight the vowel that I was supposed to be pronouncing so that eventually your eyeballs are kind of just pulling one of those as like the one that you know you need to pronounce. And then your brain will do that when you're speaking as well. So it's a multi-step process. as is everything in this language. So if we want to put in our vowel highlighting, I'm doing that now. I'm following the exact same rule I did before because the endings have not changed, so neither has the rule. So I'm going to do imos here, pronounced real nice. And then I'm going to say escriben. So all the way down, if you're doing this with me, feel free, is escribo, escribes, escribe, escribimos, and then escriben. Okay, fantástico. So a little bit different on the nosotros, everything else. You get the melody, right? Are you hearing kind of the flow and the music of it? Because that's one of my favorite cosas about Espanol is that it does have that música, to it. But the reason is that you have to follow these kind of strict rules, right? English, 0 rules. It seems like, I know there are rules, okay, but it seems like there are far less rules to help you, which makes it harder to pronounce. Now, we are not calling this hablar. We are too smart for that, right? We know that this H is silent, so you're only going to be hearing an ah sound to start each of these words, right? So I'm going to do this a bit of a hodgepodge. You're pausing me if you want to do this all by yourself. This is your chance to pause it, fill it in, and then hear. But I'm going to keep moving. So I'm going to do my assembly line for the first 3, and then I'll do a different approach for the other ones. So I've got my stem each time. O, as, a. Down here, I'll do hablar minus the AR, add amos. And down here, I'll do hablar minus the AR, hablan. Okay, so what do we come up with pronunciation-wise? Let's make our decisions. And you're going to tell me, is it hablo or hablo? Hopefully you can hear the difference. You're telling me what you think. That's right. It's hablo, hablas, habla. Try this one before I say it. Hablamos. It's almost like we're highlighting the different vowel by saying hemos, imos, amos, right? And then lastly, we're back to the original rule of hablan. Okay, fantástico. Very good. So that's our fill-in. You could do this infinitely millions of more times, right? You can just create yourself a little 2x5 box. You could also choose any regular verb that you worked on, maybe in the Complete Spanish Step-by-Step chapter 5, but you're just really getting the repetition. If this is still taking a little bit of labor, we're still having to peek at our answers, that's not a problem. I would just get more repetition with it. It's like any hobby you've ever had or anything you've had to learn to do at work. If it's like a manual process, you have to go through the steps multiple times until eventually it doesn't really feel like it's a lot of steps. The analogy I like is driving. I mean, you do so many different steps from the moment you get in a car to get to your destination, but they're completely automated in your head, right? Okay, let's take a turn now to just yo. So yo being I, where it's not actually easy, right, to just cut off the AR, ER, IR, add an O. What we'll wind up with is some irregulars. We had a whole big chart of those in Seis A, and if you are having trouble calling some of them to mind, no hay problema. I would definitely get those some extra amor or love this week before considering present tense kind of done, dusted, and ready to move on. This one we learned a long time ago, these two, right? So we learned soy. What was the other one? So you had your 2 choices of I am, estoy. And take a second if you can think about what would be the ending to this, because both of these mean to be, so it's not very helpful to just say I am. What would be a good word to go after soy or after estoy? The classic one that goes with estoy, I'll start with this here, is bien, gracias, right? But we're going to be more inventive, not question mark. We're going to be more inventive than that because we've been practicing and we don't want to just sound like we did Duolingo this morning. We're going to say yo estoy emocionada por el fin de semana, let's say. I know that's a lot. This is saying I am, what's emocionada? From way back in Lección 3, where we learned a million words. You probably decided on different words, so not your fault because I told you to be selective. This is excited. So I am excited for the weekend. That's a temporary thing because by lunes, I'm going to be all bummed again and I'll say something different, but this is my changing emotions or conditions I'm using estar for, which brings us back to ser. What would be a good thing to put after soy? I'm going to go ahead and do my point of origin and do de Colorado. because that's where I am from. But you could have put a profession here. You could have put una mujer, un hombre, estudiante, whatever, you want to put in here that is defining you in a more permanent sense. Let's get down to tener. Do you know what tener means first and foremost? Pretty common verb, gets really easily confused for all those other common verbs, including ir and hacer, but this one is have. So this would be tengo, yo tengo. What would you be saying that you have? Well, it's something you possess. So perhaps in this case, I could say, yo tengo una hermana. And that's the end to my sentence. Where and if it's possible, we definitely want to include extra vocabulary. I'm always trying to convince you that that's a good idea, but really, you're never going to use these verbs just in a vacuum, right? And you're never going to be just filling in a blank in a conversation. You want to be able to write a text message or have a conversation, and you need words for that. So keep up with the vocabulario for sure. It would make a lot of sense for your vocabulario to be verbos this time around, but hopefully from the previous lesson plans, you've also been incorporating some themes. Like maybe you're like, oh, I want to know family members' names, or I want to learn my colors or something, and try to work those into this exercise también. Down here, we've got ir. This one is pure memorization. And honestly, I don't know if I've even taught the entire chart of this verb by this point, but you should have voy, hopefully, from Lección 6A. I don't do the whole rest of the chart, but there's also V's everywhere, which is very confusing. And then it would make a lot of sense that I could use some of my locations that I was working on during estar. So pause me now. You're thinking of a location. Casa is too easy. Don't do casa. What else could you do? I'm going to say a la biblioteca because legitimately I am in the biblioteca like every 2 días. This is not a joke. What is a biblioteca, you ask? It's a library. So I go, or I'm going to the library. Okay, hacer. What is hacer? What's it mean? This is hago. Yo hago. So it's to do or to make. I didn't tell you that before. I'm just like, well, I'll just give you the answer. So yo hago, to do, to make. So what do we do or make, basically? If you're an estudiante of mine, if you're watching these videos, you are doing tarea right now. So we're going to say yo hago tarea, or you could say my other favorite word for random is las galletas. So this is either I do homework or I make cookies. Why not, right? So those are your options here. Feel free to finish these sentences in a different way if you'd like to. If you want to challenge yourself, try to say, well, what would the to form be for ser? Or how do I do ellos for tener? Because that's opening a whole nother can of worms, right? You would need to know what else is happening within those charts, not just the top line of yo, but at least this is a starting point for us, okay? Now, let's just do one last thing here, which is stem change, okay? So what we're going to need to do for a stem changer is we're going to have to find and replace. So what I like to do is put my entire stem in like I was doing assembly line, and then I'm going to go back and fix it. Okay, so this one is telling me I need to take that O and make it a UE. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to apply it everywhere except here. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so that's my new assembly line. As I'm going through and I'm replacing my O with a UE, I'm getting vuelve. And then this is nothing new with the ER endings. We just did this. So I'm going to pop in all of my endings without even thinking about it. But let's stop on nosotros, because this one is a tiny little nitpicky rule that I'm hopeful you remember. Why did I not put the new stem in for volver, for nosotros? Is it because perhaps we want the old stem, the original volve? We want volvemos. Here's how you know that. A, because I forced you to learn this now twice. B, because vuelvemos sucks, right? That sounds terrible. Vuelvemos is wrong because it has vuelvemos. We want volvemos, right? One point of emphasis within every word. And we get that with vuelvo here, vuelves, right? So we're pronouncing our second to last, just as we've been doing. But do you see how these get a little bit more tongue twisty? So you're relying upon that same rule that you were using up here, remember, when we were filling these in, but it's just getting harder to know how it's supposed to sound. So it's vuelven at the bottom and volvemos with this E, okay? We come down here, I'm being told the rule again. I know you're not going to be told the rule in real life, but we're still learning and practicing. So I'm trying to be helpful. So we do intend, which is what we started with. You go, oh crap, there's two E's. Which one am I supposed to do? Well, I think it's always supposed to be the internal one, is what she hopefully told me. So this is my new stem. I'm going to go ahead and drop it in everywhere it's applicable. Not here, not here. Here, I'm just actually going to drop this in, right? So I'll just use that. And then I'm going to do my ER endings again. How uncreative of this lesson plan to have the same ending, but it's pretty much the same as the ER anyway, right? So O es hemos, no stem change, and ta-da. So many vowels happening here. You're going in and choosing your pronunciation. You're going to do all your highlights real quick while I'm paused. And now you're going to listen to how I'm going to pronounce these and repeat after me if you need to. Entiendo, entiendes, entiende, entendemos, entienden. Fantástico. I'm sure that's exactly how you said it. Muy bien. You can always, I'm telling you this every single video pretty much. You can always go back. You can always pick a different verb. You want to really test yourself? Throw a different E to IE in and do a chart right next to it. Different O to UE, check that too. Because in Lección 6A, dare we forget, we had 5 opciones for each of these rules. So I just chose a verb at random, but you can choose a different one and try it all by yourself. All right, I threw in digo here because I'm not trying to start a riot, okay? I know that this one is also in irregular yo form, so you're getting a little extra yo form practice here, but I didn't want that to be the sticking point, okay? Now I'm doing my stem again like this, and then I find, oh yeah, I'm supposed to swap that for an I, so I'm going to do that real quick. This D thing is going to be my second, and I'm skipping because I would hate to use the wrong thing. I'm going to borrow this des here, and then I'm adding my endings with an IR verb this time. So what is different between these? Well, I get to use the same O that's already done in this one. I get to use the same es right here. Cool. I use an a right here. This one, though, this is where it's always going to be different. So this nosotros is really just going against the grain. Am I right? And then lastly, we got n, and n again. So pronunciation is a high-pitched sounding I. It is not the flat I that we have. So this will sound like digo, dices, dice, because I'm pronouncing my second to last. Decimo, so it's like I's all around, right? This one is just placed different. And dicen. Okay. Fantástico. Try another verb here. Highly recommend you pick a different one, right? So I could say try another verb. And I'm going to put that in each of these with a little highlight so that when you get to this video companion, you find, oh yeah, I had homework. She always gives me something to do, right? So we're checking these. If this is a struggle, you can always go back to Lección 6A. It's the one right before this. Hopefully it's fresh. This might have just been a review topic for you, and you may find that you need more. That's totally cool. That's what this is for. So we've got some oraciones. I'm going to zoom out a teeny bit. So we've got them in Español to start, right? And then you're going to be writing your own sentence without help from me. I mean, I'll help a little. So I'm just going to show you one of these here, and then we're going to go down and try down here. So note that you might be seeing a bunch of stem changers or irregulars in here because I wanted to practice the tough ones, right? But you will have some mixed in here that are actually regular. So fear not. Okay, let's take a look at this. Let's do él quiere comer pizza because I feel like this has got to be true. I don't even know who he is. So this is he. I've got 2 verbs now. So I'm going to say he wants, and then the second verb is left infinitive, just to show you an example. And that's going to sound like to eat. Okay, because we're leaving it in its infinitive, which is to eat, to want, to be able to, right? Pizza. So I think this is a great template to use querer and then something after. We all love eating, as I'm sure. So you could say yo quiero comer pasta or something. So feel free to mix these up. But remembering that our first verb is conjugated, our second verb is not if they're back to back. All right, we're working our way down to where things get difficult. Now, I'm going to do nosotros and ear because I'm not entirely certain that I've even provided you the ear chart yet. I'd like to save that for Lección 8. So let's do this one together just to hedge that bet. So this one's going to be, all right, de nosotros, because why not? Vamos, there was no preparing you for that, I understand. That's why I'm taking this one for the team. Okay, nosotros vamos, and then I need a place. I gave you biblioteca before, which you remember to be library. Give me another place, though. Where do you want this to be occurring? Where are we going? Where is this going down? I'm going to say vamos al café, because that's another place I spend a lot of my time. It's coffee shops, right? You are going to say, I spend all my time at the museum and the gym. Okay, fantastico. You'd be putting museo and gimnasio because it is your world. So you decide. So this is una oración that I'm filling in just a little bit of vocabulary, right? And then maybe down here, I'm going to try this one, last one. I'll say my subject is el. I do want to write el. I didn't have to say nosotros here, but I figure it's a good habit to show you that they match. Now, this verb, I'm just looking at it and I'm like, wait a minute. Something seems off about almorza, because that's the answer I got to. I'm like, I don't really love that. I go back to my seis a, I check my list of verbs. I'm like, man, this was an O to UE stem changer. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to take my O, replace it with a UE. I'm going to get almuerza. I see it's an AR verb. I'll add my ending, and I get almuerza. And I feel like I like that better. I like that pronunciation better than almorza. So I say el almuerza. And I'm like, what does almuerza even mean? Is it one of those meals of the day that has its own verb? See, it is. It's not cenar, that's to eat dinner. It's not almuerzo. Sorry, it is almuerzo. It's not desayunar, which is to eat breakfast. So this one is he lunches as a verb, right? Él almuerza una ensalada, because I'm in my healthy era, let's say, and I want to do salad. Okay, so he lunches salad, or eats salad for lunch, is how we would translate that. So these are my decisiones. You're going to make your own decisions. You're going to be called upon to do some regulars like these first three, and some irregulars like these next three. So take the time to fill these in, mix them up, do extra examples, go back through lección. Sorry, I think it's capítulo, so chapter 5 and 6, so cinco y seis, in Complete Spanish Step by Step. Create yourself a drill if you want to feel really feisty on Spanish Dictionary that includes all present tense. Take nothing off the table and just have it throw you a regular verb, then an irregular verb, then an irregular, then a regular. And you're constantly just context switching between, okay, I know my ending, so I'll just apply those, but is anything strange about this yo form, or do I need to stem change? And that's the whole topic of the day, right? So here I was thinking this would be short, sweet, and easy, but as always sneaks up on me, present tense is hard, and it's one of the first ones that we work with. But fear not, because we're going to get into something really exciting that we can do with present tense in Lección 8. That's the next time we'll really deal with verbs, is going to be 8A, where we're going to make some formulas out of present tense. So yes, you'll still need to know your conjugations for present tense. It never goes away. It's a very, very useful tense for us in our first one, but you will get a chance to keep practicing then. I wouldn't move on until you're getting about 80% accuracy, and we got to start knowing some of these verbs, because things like to have and to go, to say, to do, they come up every single conversation. If you were to do an audit of your English, they're everywhere. So we do need them in Español también. So doing some exercises with those verbos, throwing in new vocabulary, threading through to the different lecciones that need review. All of this is part of using the library, and it's very self-guided. So I would, as you're winding down this video right now, jot down a couple things that you're going to do after this video is over. I'm always telling you, if you're in here for 30 minutes, you're probably going to need at least 30 minutes of practice on your own. So where are we scheduling that time before you come back for some question action in the next video? I'm excited to see you then. Happy studies. Felices estudios. Hasta luego.